All right, and welcome back to Logan Simmons Photography. Great to have you here, and if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It really helps out a lot, and you can see these great videos right when they come out. And also, if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. Again, helps us out a lot and shows that you like it. Obviously, that's why there's a like button. So today I want to talk to you about the photographic term called vignetting. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And basically what vignetting is, those are dark corners on the edges of your image. And what that is actually caused by is in a lens, at least in an optical sense anyway, there are some other kinds of vignetting, but we're focusing on the optical one. The lens elements can actually cast a shadow to the elements below, and that's why you get those dark corners there. And oftentimes on cheaper lenses, this is going to be more prominent. And what you can do, obviously you can buy a more expensive lens, it's maybe calibrated or constructed a little bit better, or you can do what's called stopping down, which is where you make the aperture of the lens a little bit smaller, which kind of cuts off those corners a little bit. It doesn't affect necessarily the focal length, but it will cut off those corners and you'll avoid some of that darkness there. But let me kind of show you an example, because maybe that's a bit too specific there. So I want to go ahead and show this example. This is an old film photograph that happens to have pretty bad vignetting. And you'll see this was taken a number of years ago. And this is a picture actually I took in high school. This is Miss Florida High, 2005, it looks like right here. And this was taken at a very wide angle on film. It was old cameras, old lenses. And if you see up here, up in the corners, there's actually those dark corners, and you notice how the frame isn't evenly lit. Now, there was a flash used in this photograph, which would probably explain some of this, but you can still see those dark corners. It's not too distracting, but when you point it out, it really does start to say, why is that there? I wish it wasn't. Now, that's probably an example of it not being good. It can also be aesthetically pleasing. So let me show you this old black and white picture right here. Again, same kind of old equipment, but in this case, the vignetting up there in the corners actually draws your eye there into the center of the photograph and kind of gives it kind of an old-fashioned look, but also it draws your attention there. In this case, to the cafe there, and not so much maybe that power line up there, or there's not a whole lot going on in the sky, so it helps to focus your eye in there. So that can be a really big advantage in an aesthetic choice if you want to do that. But we want to say here, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, it's both. So let's go take a look at the bad one and see how we can correct it. I'm going to go ahead and use Adobe Camera Raw, which is the same editing engine as Adobe Lightroom. So the controls are going to be pretty similar whether you're working in Camera Raw or Lightroom. I just happen to prefer working in Camera Raw. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to open this up in Adobe Camera Raw. Again, this is the Miss Florida High picture we're going to look at. And she'll open up right there, but before we do that, it looks like Nalda Cat has decided to join us. So let's go ahead and have her jump up here. If she wants to, does she? You know what I'm going to do for the sake of recording? I'm going to move her up to the seat, and she'll sit right there and not cause any trouble whatsoever, we hope. But anyway, let's go back to Miss Florida High here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to this little tab here that looks like a lens. And it comes up lens corrections. Okay, before we go over to manual, I want to go over to profile here. And there's a couple different options. Enable chromatic, remove chromatic aberrations. Those are those little, if you look at a very high contrast area, you might see a little bit of magenta or green kind of cast in high contrast areas. If you check that, that will mostly remove that. But I want to focus on enable profile corrections. Now, what Adobe has done is it can read the picture, the file that you've shot, and determine what camera it was, what lens it was. It can apply the appropriate corrections. So basically, if there's a vignette, it can remove it. Now, this is an old film scan here, so it has no idea what camera this was, therefore cannot apply an automatic correction. But you could here go down here and you can go to lens profile, and I believe this was shot on a Minolta, but I don't see a Minolta. Actually, you know what? No, maybe it was a Sigma. Hold on, so we can go down to Sigma. And there's just a few different options here, and none of them were this one. So, I could select that, and that's not the correct lens profile. Well, you see what it did there. It actually did brighten up there the corners of the image, but that's not the correct profile for this particular lens. I don't think Adobe ever made one. So we'll have to do it manually. So I'm going to go over to manual. When you go down here below the fringe option, which is get more of that chromatic aberration stuff, and you'll see vignetting, and you'll see dark and light. Now, if I go dark, it's going to make it worse, like you see there. But if I bring it up to light, I can go ahead and really brighten those corners up. Now, midpoint is another important thing. Basically, the effect, it's basically how sharp the effect is or how quick the effect is. Let me just kind of show it to you. I'll kind of slide the midpoint back and move it forward. So basically what it does is it's basically extending the effect out, making it a little bit, it's hard to explain, but hopefully you can see it there. In this case, we want to go ahead and move the midpoint probably a little bit up there. We want as much illumination as possible. It's making that effect a little bit more broad when we do that. So, we can say we're pretty much done there. In fact, what I'll go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll say vignette correct. So if we ever want to go back to that, we can. So I'll go ahead and save that out. Okay, let's see there. All right, so then of course you have your before and after there. With the before, it's definitely a little bit darker, and with the correct, it's going to be a little bit, definitely a little bit better there. So there you go. Let me go ahead and open up this image right here. Now this image this is taken on a digital camera, so there may be some corrections already plugged in here. I'm not sure. Let's go back to our lens correction and see. And still not, because it's a really ancient lens that I particularly use, but it was a Minolta lens. And if there was a Minolta lens here, I could select it, but again, it doesn't look like it is. So I'm going to have to turn that off yet again. And then I'm going to go ahead, we can do a couple of things here. So I can go do my vignetting right here, correct it or add it or what have you there. But I want to show you another area as well that's very helpful, because I probably want to do a quick crop here on this one. And there's actually a feature to do the vignette correction after the crop, because if I do this down here with a crop, it's not going to work. It's going to start correcting vignettes to part of the images I've removed. It's not going to be even. So let's go ahead and do that quick correction there, the quick crop, like so. And then I'm going to go over to effects, and you may have seen this in some of my videos before. We got to hear a post-crop vignette, and it's basically what it sounds like there. It is doing a vignette after the crop has been done. And I find there are definitely more options in the post-crop vignette, and obviously allows us to do that after we've cropped. So I'm going to go ahead and, one thing I'm noticing in this particular image, and you have to decide this on an image by image case, it really looks like to me like, the focus of attention is right here. Anything else is kind of distracting. So I'm going to go ahead and actually adjust here, and we're going to add a vignette. And I'm going to do it pretty severely here. Maybe about right there, okay? And there are some other options here. The midpoint is what we saw before, so I can adjust that, and it's not gonna, in this case, it's gonna kind of push it out, or I can push it back in there. I'm not gonna do that as much. Whoops, I think I've got to go back to 50 to get it back in the middle. There we go. Or I can also adjust basically whether this is a very sharp filter or more rounded. So that's what the roundness tab does. So I probably will leave that. Well, you know what? I might make some quick adjustments here. Make it a little bit more round, because it's such a circular image right here. I think that's important. Then the feather is basically going to decrease basically where it transitions from not being vignetted to vignetted. The feather will make that transition a little bit more harsh, or a little bit less. In fact, if I start really dialing that feather back, you can see almost that very abrupt transition from the darker blue there to the lighter. That's not something we want. In fact, I might just leave that alone. And whoops, again, go back to 50 there. Highlights, I guess, just affects the highlights. I never play around with that, but you certainly can there. So let's go and make a quick correction there, maybe a little bit more there to warm up the image, and I might make those greens maybe a little bit more yellow, but these are all aesthetic choices. And let's say, you know what, that blue, I want to make that a little bit more saturated there, really give it a little pop there. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and save that particular image out, and we're going to say vignette add. How about that? And then we can kind of compare there from where we started. Okay, and we'll get rid of Miss Florida High. Let's go back to Bridge. And if you looked at where we started, there's again, it was kind of flat right here. There was too much detail there in the corners, but within that vignette, really focusing it down there really helped us and really gave us that emphasis that we were looking for. So I hope you enjoyed our little journey on what is the photographic vignette. And sorry that Nala popped in, but she wanted to really help out here and make things nice. So tell me what you think. Do you like the vignette? Is it something that should be avoided? Is it just a characteristic of old lenses? Or do you really like the effect? Does it really make your images a lot better? Because that's my opinion. I think you have to use it judiciously. Depends on the image you're working on. So that's one thing too. Remember those profile corrections. If those are enabled, whether it's in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, try turning those off, because you are hiding some of the lens imperfections that in fact may look quite beautiful as well. So anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Logan Simmons Photography here with us today. Again, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. And we'll see you here again next time. You have a good one. Bye-bye.